always knew I wanted to pursue a career in radio. I was the typical, stereotypical kid who would listen to the transistor radio, listen to the Met game, in bed under the blankets and whatever. And radio has always played an important part in my life. I first fell in love with radio. It was a long time ago. I was in grammar school and I had a case of tonsillitis and was bedridden. And my parents put a radio in the bedroom so I could listen, and I listened to a Knick game. And I saw the game on the radio. And ever since then, I've fallen in love with radio. So it's been a journey from radio then into journalism, to where I am today. I've been at WSHU since January of 2016. I came aboard as part-time on Long Island. We have a Long Island bureau, which I opened up on a part-time basis. I was still working in New York City at WOR at the time, and an opportunity came up. At the time, I thought it was just going to be, some extra money for me, but I came to believe in the mission of WSHU and the Long Island Bureau, which employed students, to go out and cover stories, that when an opportunity came up for me to join WSHU full-time, I took it later in that year. I was about 20 years into my career in 2001. I had just started earlier that year at 1010 Wins, which is where I was that day.
All news, all the time. This is 1010 Wins. You give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Good morning. 64 degrees at 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday, September 11th. I'm Lee Harris. Here's what's happening. It's primary day, and the polls are open in New York City. Voters are deciding among about 250 candidates for mayor, city council, and assorted other positions.
This just into our newsroom. A plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. Let's get this live update from 1010 Wins correspondent Joan Fleischer. Joan, what do you see?
9/11 itself was all about trying to get down as close to the scene as possible, and I wound up at St. Vincent's Hospital, which was one of the nearest trauma centers, just to see as they were bringing in people, from the site. But pretty soon it became obvious that they weren't bringing in people. And there's a moment, that you hear sometimes, it's been on the History Channel and stuff, where I'm just like, there's no one. It's been 3 hours since they brought someone in. There's no one coming in that's injured. So that was probably the first hint that, as horrible as the day was, there was nobody to be rescued. I spent the first 2 weeks after the attack down at ground zero, so you would bring that home with you, and little things would bother you. So you're wrapped up in it, because it's just, you're wrapped up in it. It's a good thing to try to separate from it, but there are sometimes, it does have an effect. It did, I was never diagnosed with PTSD, but for about a year after that, it had an effect. I preferred to be around people who were also there, because we had a shared experience. Things I used to get joy from for that first year, I didn't find joy in them. I used to love music. I still do, but for a year it sort of was like, so yes, it does take a toll on you. And sometimes we forget that as journalists, while we may not be official participants in events such as 9/11 or an event such as Sandy Hook, we are witnessing them. And it does take a toll, and we do need to try to separate that. There are several ways to teach experience to young journalists, or it could be for anybody that has, a 40-plus year career, dealing with people who are just starting. One is to teach them the skills, which is important. But on the other hand, I always say, don't be married to the technology. The technology is going to change, but to teach them the skills that they need. But more importantly, it's to teach them how to think, how to, okay, you're in this situation. What do you do? You're at this press conference. What question do you ask? How do you follow up? How do you do an interview? How to recognize when you're being lied to or you're being led. So to me, that it's a two-pronged thing, the skills, but also the critical thinking part of being a journalist. So that's the thing that I enjoy the most right now. Be open-minded and don't be afraid to have fun. You know, again, if you're a journalist, one of my mentors, the late Stan Brooks, he would say he had 50-yard seats to history. You know, there are certain little things that you're going to see, so take those moments in. You'll meet people, you know, so enjoy that. But the biggest thing is just, you know, keep an open mind and, you know, be fair. That's the big thing. If you're covering someone, be fair, but don't be afraid to have fun. You know, if there's a light story, go with it. You know, not fluff, but, you know, go with it.